Good day, everyone. I am Michelle Francis M. Morales,
And I am Von Cleo Roba from BSCE 2A.
and for today we will discuss the oral presentation in workplace. But before we proceed, I will first share to you the statement of Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford once said that if I went back to college again, I'd concentrate on two areas: learning to write and to speak before an audience. He said that nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively, and that is certainly true. Whatever degree you have, this is important for you to land in different places. Your ability to communicate with people opens a lot of opportunities. So it's important that aside from the skills that you get from your specialization, you are able to communicate effectively to different people. And this is our agenda in this topic. We will tackle the definition, the significance, the purpose, the anatomy of oral presentation, and the rules for making a good oral presentation in the workplace. First is the definition. So, what is oral presentation in the workplace? Oral presentation encourage broader dissemination of your work and highlight work that may not receive attention in the written form. And from the word oral presentation, which is also known as public speaking in the workplace or simply presentations, it consists of an individual or group verbally addressing an audience on a particular topic. And the aim of this is to educate, inform, entertain, or present an argument, especially in a corporate world. And an oral presentation uses more businesslike tone and language because of the fact that it is used for work purposes. It utilizes materials such as projectors and other presentation software such as PowerPoint. As what I am doing right now, this is a PowerPoint presentation. And we also know that when having an oral presentation in your workplace, it will significantly increase or improve the performance of everyone in the business. As you can see here in my presentation, the bar significantly increased through time. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. It increased the performance rate of the people in the corporate. And for the significance of the oral presentation in the workplace, an oral presentation in the workplace is an employee's chance to show off the work she has been doing and prove her value to the company. Whether an employee is presenting to a department or company-wide, it is important to gear the presentation toward the audience since that is your time to tell everything what you've learned and what you've been doing in your company. So you must showcase everything. And also, an oral presentation may be delivered in internal audience. And an example of this is the engineers that are presenting to marketing and financial managers will need to share information that is relevant to product features and the cost of production respectively. That is the internal audience included presentations during the meeting with the advent of technology. And this oral presentation conducted in this example may not only be done face to face, but also through a video conferencing, especially now that we're in pandemic, where most of the meeting presentation or speeches are done virtually. In addition to the example given, the engineer may need to explain more technical terms in his presentation. And for the purpose of oral presentation, which is to inform, to instruct, to persuade, to aid decision making. The first one is to inform. Informative presentations are common in the corporate world, typically to inform listeners about a specific event, project, or to give the audience basic information. So it will aid the audience to be prepared. But first, you need to know your purposes and goals to inform your audience. And you need to start and end it with a bang. What I mean with a bang is we inform the audience and not just informing them, but it will be memorable to them. Therefore, something that will make your audience remember what you said. And for the second one, to instruct. Instructional presentations exist to give those in the audience specific directions or orders, possibly in teaching audience members new skills or presenting key information. And this type of presentation may run longer than the other types since it depends on the complex on the subject. An instructional presentation from a building contractor, for instance, might detail all the steps needed to plan construction, install water and electrical systems, and more. So it has more longer process than the any other purpose of oral presentation, since it is instructional or a detailed instructions. And to persuade, persuasive presentations are those in which the speaker works to convince members of the audience to accept a proposal or the speaker is trying to make a sale. So it is persuading your audience to be on your side too. For example, a city council person may use a persuasive speech to urge the rest of the council to allot more tax money for a new park. Thus, it is very important to also use your real life experience or to present your real life experience in order to persuade your audience. And if you persuade your audience, then you are good in oral presentation. And the last one, to aid decision making. Professional may use decision making presentation when their company needs to settle on specific policies or to make choices about the company's organizational structure. And this oral presentation in workplace and decision making are dynamic processes essential for an organization's functioning. Communication involves transmission of information among individuals and subunits or the audience, and the decision making uses the information that was presented to set direction and solve problems as it helps identifying and assessing alternative courses of the actions.
Oral presentation anatomy. An oral presentation anatomy has three parts: the opening or the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. The opening of oral presentations should establish an emotional connection with the audience. This includes also an eye contact with them. This can be done through an anecdote, which means a very short story that is significant to the topic at hand. Have to tell a story or a short story, especially an interesting or amusing nature. This can be done also through a question or a relevant statistics. So whatever approach you choose, it should reflect the audience or a link that is essential to them in some way. In the body, so you keep your presentation's goal in mind throughout the body. Stick to a few key points, only expanding on them when necessary with relevant and supportive materials. So the body of a presentation should be given in a logical manner that is easy for the audience to follow and is relevant to the topic at hand. and and the conclusion or the closing section of the presentation should leave the audience with something that resonates. So your conclusion should end the presentation on a good note and leave the audience with the impression that they have spent their time well by listening to you. So in to sum it up, no, the opening or the introduction prepares the audience for what you will say in the body of the talk and or the discussion, and the conclusion reminds them of your major points.
Let's discuss the rules for making a good oral presentation. So rule number one, talk to the audience. Know your audience, their backgrounds and knowledge of the material you are presenting and what they are hoping to get out of the presentation. This means that you have to create or prepare presentations that speak to the intended audience. So you have to deliver what the audience wants to hear. So this will help you in determining what your target audience desires. So that's the rule number one. Rule number two is less is more. Less is more. A common mistake or some inexperienced speakers frequently make the mistake of trying to convey too much. No, they feel the need. They feel the need to show themselves by demonstrating how much they know about their presentation. So as a result, no, the message is frequently overlooked. So less is more. So your knowledge of the subject is best expressed through a clear and concise presentation that is provocative and leads to a dialogue during the question and answer session when the audience becomes active participants. So at that point, you will be able to demonstrate your understanding of the subject, no, of or your presentation. That's the rule number two. Rule number three: talk only, talk only when you have something to say. No, talk only when you have something to say. In 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 layman's term, no, only speak necessary when it is when it is necessary, or only speak necessary information, or um, like that. So talk only when you have something to say. So remember that audience time is precious and should not be abused by presentation of uninteresting preliminary material. So avoid um, giving unnecessary information uh, on your presentation, no, on your presentation. So that's rule number three. Rule number four: make the take home message persistent. A good rule of thumb is this: if you ask a member of the audience a week later about your presentation, he or she should be able to remember three key points. If these are the key points that you were trying to get across, then you have done a good job. So this means that, no, in order for your audience to remember, no, the key points of your presentation. So it is important that you organize your presentation clearly and simply so that the audience could easily understand and remember important points in your talk or in your presentation. So that's the rule number four. let's go to the rule number 5. Be logical. Think of the presentation as a story. No, as a story, like you're you're telling a story. So think of that. Think your presentation as a story. There is a logical flow. No? It says here that a clear beginning, middle, and the end, and an end. So you set the stage in the beginning. You tell the story in the middle, and you have a big finish at the end where the take-home message um, is clearly understood. So that's the rule number 5. Rule number 6: treat the floor as a stage. Presentations, a presentation should be entertaining, but do not overdo it and know your limits. So there is limits. There is a limitation, no, when you are presenting. So if you are not humorous by nature, do not try and be humorous. And also, if you are not good at telling anecdotes, then do not try and tell anecdotes, and so on. So, remember that a good performer will fascinate the audience and increase the likelihood of following the rule number 4 above. Okay, so that's rule number 6. The rule number 7: practice and time your presentation. So this is also important when making when presenting, when you're going to present, no, your up an oral presentation. So this is important for inexperienced presenters. Um, when you give the presentation, stick to what you practice. No, some of us, that includes also me. That includes me also. when making an oral presentation or a speech, no, some of us, no, it is common for us to deviate, and give needless information to the audience. So you have to, in order to uh, um, in order to uh, for us when making an oral presentation, to avoid that mistake, so you have to practice. It says that the more you practice, the less likely you will be to go off on tangents. The more presentations you give, the better you are going to get.
And for the number 8, for the rules for making a good oral presentation, use visuals sparingly but effectively. If you have more than one visual for each minute you are talking, you have too many and you will run over time. Obviously, some visuals are quick, others take time to get the message across. Therefore, you should have a visual aid that is straight to the point and not with flowering words, since you are the one who will discuss further the lesson you're going to present. And you should avoid reading the visuals unless you wish to emphasize the point explicitly. The visual should support what you are saying, either for emphasis or with data to prove the verbal point. Finally, do not overload the visual and make the points few and clear. As what I have said, you should state in your visual aid straight to the point. For number 9, review audio and or video of your presentation. So we must review our presentation before presenting it to the audience to avoid misinterpretation and for them to understand more what you are trying to present. And there is nothing more effective than listening to and viewing a presentation you have made. Seeing what is wrong is easy. Correcting it the next time around is not. Work hard on breaking bad habits. It is important. And for the last one, to provide appropriate acknowledgments. So it is often appropriate to acknowledge people at the beginning or at the point of their contribution so that their contributions are very clear. So it is important for us to acknowledge the audience feedback to have an improvement in the organization or in the business or in the corporate world for the business to flourish. And acknowledgments and others statements, and you will have to state, I will give it serious consideration before I take further action for them to feel that they are part of the company or the organization. And that would be all. But before we end this discussion, Roba, prepared an assignment for you. And this includes enumeration and essay. For the enumeration, 1 to 10, what are the 10 rules in oral presentation in the workplace? And for the essay, you should write at least 3 to 5 sentences each. Number 1, in your own words, what is oral presentation in the workplace? For number 2, what is the purpose of having an oral presentation in the workplace? And lastly, elaborate the significance of having oral presentation in the workplace. And that would be all. I am Michelle Francis and Morales together with Bon Player Roba presenting the oral presentation in the workplace. Thank you, God bless, and bye-bye.